And one of my favorite stories is a veteran I did a loan for, and he was paralyzed in a wheelchair, and he never thought he'd be a homeowner. He's 57 years old, never owned a home, and obviously he needed the home to be compatible for his needs and his disability. And when I met him, I told him about the renovation loan. And we got him into a home. He was actually crying the day of closing. And being a first-time home buyer at 57 years old, never thinking there was a loan program out there for him to meet his needs. And we were able to do it with the renovation loan.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Sign, where we go beyond the transaction and bring you conversations with professionals who help people navigate one of the life's biggest investments. Today's episode is one I think every buyer and honestly every realtor needs to hear. We've all walked into a home that's incredible, has incredible potential, but needs some work. Maybe the kitchen is outdated, the bathrooms haven't been touched in 30 years, the flooring needs replacing, or even the backyard is nothing but dirt. Most buyers assume they'll have to come up with tens of thousands of dollars after closing to make those improvements, so they simply just move on to the next house. But what if there was another option? Joining us today is Pam Wall, who specializes in renovation lending, several other unique financing programs that most buyers and even realtors don't know exist. Today we're going to break down how the renovation loan works, who it's designed for, common misconceptions, and why this could completely change how buyers shop for homes in today's market. So Pam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I enjoy being here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your background and how did you get into mortgage lending?
So my background is I've been in the mortgage industry about 40 years, and I just really love it. I have a very unique story on getting in the mortgage industry. I was going to business school, was young, right out of high school, really didn't know what a mortgage was. And my mother was delivering a baby for a president of a small mortgage company here in Phoenix. And he said they were hiring entry-level people. And I was like, okay. I didn't know what a mortgage was except when I played Monopoly. And I went and took the entry-level position and thought financing and homeownership was really interesting. So I started as a little setup gal and typed verification forms on an IBM typewriter, which now we do all of our verifications electronically with technology, and just moved up through the industry, really enjoyed it, decided to get my banking and financing degree, and here I am 40 years later.
Wonderful. So you've been doing it a long time. You have a lot of experience. I'm sure a lot of stories to tell along the way. What made renovation lending something an area you focused on, and when did you really get into the renovation loans?
I've known renovation loans my whole life or my whole career, but I really didn't get into it till the last 4 or 5 years, pretty much when COVID started. And what happened was a lot of people were working at home and they needed a home office, and they just didn't have the funds to build that office, or they wanted to build a separate room for the kids to do their education. And so that's kind of what got my interest in the renovation loans. And then I realized what a unique program it was and how many people were walking away from opportunities. And then I decided to really dig into the program and start educating people.
So what is the renovation loan in short for our listeners before we get too far into this? Because I kind of want to start on the opportunities buyers miss and then really talk about the renovation loan, but just maybe a quick description of what the renovation loan is and who it's for. That would be great.
So a renovation loan could be for a buyer or a seller. I'd say normally the buyer. And basically it's for a home that they locate that they like to purchase, but maybe it doesn't meet their expectations. It could be missing an RV garage. The kitchen could be outdated. It doesn't meet their needs. They need an additional bedroom, maybe build on a suite for an elderly parent, updating, and it's an opportunity for them to purchase this home and finance the costs into the mortgage without putting on a credit card for 30% or without draining their bank account and using all their cash. So it gives a buyer an opportunity to purchase a home they love, but doesn't meet the needs the day they see it.
And can this be, does this need to be a flip?
This could be for anything. If you want to do something minimal, like just flooring and painting, or if you want to gut the house and totally remodel it, you could use it for an owner-occupied home for someone that's going to live in the property. You could use it for a vacation home, and even investors can use it to purchase homes and remodel an investment property. So it could be used for various ways.
And why do so many buyers immediately walk away from homes like this that need work?
They just don't know the opportunities that they have. Most buyers walk into a home and they go, oh, it's outdated or it needs some work. And they just walk out because they don't have the cash in the bank to pay for it. They don't understand this loan program. and they don't want to max out their credit cards to pay for the repairs. So it's easier just to walk out of the house and go find something that's different.
We get a lot of sellers who have a home that they're looking to sell that needs all those updates. And those aren't really the easiest ones to sell in this market. They're thinking, okay, I'll sell to an investor, but they get they get 70 cents on the dollar when they're bringing those investors in, where this is a great solution, to advertise, our listings, to say, hey, we understand this home may be dated. However, we've got a solution for you that's going to actually open this up to every buyer, and you'll actually get market value without, giving away everything, just because it does maybe need some updates. They'll at least get what it's worth as is, rather than having to sell at a huge discount and then just sell it to a flipper. So yeah, this is a great marketing tool, I think.
I agree. There's a lot of people that want to flip a home or renovate a home and make it theirs, but they just don't think it's possible outside of, obviously a cash avenue. And there's hard money financing and things like that as well. But the person that maybe isn't caring to flip 10 to 20 homes a year and make a living doing that just is looking for a home for them and their family. But Pam, I want to come back to you on the renovation loan. You told us what that is. So in the renovation loan, are the buyers financing the purchase of the house as well as the renovations together, or is this going to be two different mortgages?
Good question. So this is just one loan. So what we do is we take the sales price of the home and then any upgrades they want, we add them together. And then we calculate their down payment from there. So it is just one loan. And whether they want to, like I said, do flooring, cabinets, whatever they want to do, it's all included in the one loan.
And do buyers, what kind of cash do they need to do this loan? Do they need cash for renovations?
So we have a conventional loan for first-time home buyer, minimum of 3% down payment. Or if they're a veteran, they could actually do a VA zero down loan, not have any down payment at all, include all the upgrades into the financing.
And what kind of improvements are considered?
We say the sky's the limit. I mean, if you have a structure of a house, we don't care if the kitchen's been burnt down in a fire, if the house has mold, if it has termite, the buyers can do anything they want to that home.
And can you walk us through the process, say, from when somebody inquires and wants to talk with you about doing this? What's the process from them from start to finish? I imagine close of escrow maybe a little bit longer on a transaction like this. Are renovations done before or after purchase?
So what happens is a lot of times when a buyer comes to me, they don't know they're going to go out and find a property that needs renovation. So they might be pre-qualified just for a regular loan program. And then they find a house that's outdated or doesn't fit their taste. So at that time, what they do, one, they make an offer on the home just like they would any other transaction. And once their offer is accepted, then they meet with a contractor, or they could go to a retail store like Floor & Decor, Home Depot, pick out whatever upgrades they want. And then I order the appraisal. And the reason we don't order the appraisal until we have the bids is because we want that after value. We want that home to appraise with the upgrades on there. And then once we have that after value, that's how we calculate their 3% down payment. And so they can finance pretty much anything into the home. It could be a project that takes 30 days. It could be a project that takes a year, depending on what they're doing, if they totally demo the home or just do simple cosmetic things.
And what would be the pros of doing a renovation loan as opposed to some of the alternatives like hard money financing, or, maybe somebody getting a personal loan or a HELOC or something of the sort?
So there's a lot of different benefits to it. One benefit I think is huge is, like you said, people look at a home, it's outdated, they walk out of the house. So that seller might not be getting a lot of offers. That might give the buyer an opportunity to go in and maybe negotiate the sales price because the seller's not getting a lot of offers. So that seller is anxious to get an offer. So they might be more willing to work with the buyers on cost and paying closing cost. The other benefit is the clients can make the home their taste. Sometimes the seller goes and updates a home, but it's their taste and they just spent all this money to update it. And then the buyers walk in and like, that's kind of not our taste. We don't like that. So it gives the buyers an opportunity to make it their dream home and design it the way they like it to be. And then again, the financing is a huge part because instead of putting it on a credit card at 30% interest, they're financing it all into one loan and everything's taken care of. And all the work is done after the closing. So the sellers are out of the property and they don't have to deal with any upgrades being done.
How does the loan handle change orders with the contractors along the way? What happens with things like that?
So we can work with change orders if they want to add some additional items. So we have what's called a contingency, or we have an emergency account. So when we close on these loans, we give it a cushion of an extra 10%. And so this way, if they decide they want to do additional upgrades or change something, we have that backup cushion money. Or maybe expenses come out more than anticipated. Like during COVID, lumber was going up really quick. So the cost was higher. And so we have that emergency backup money where changes could be made with the contractor or adding additional work. And we basically just get a change order and then we update the appraiser, letting him know what work is going to be done.
So it's pretty straightforward process. I mean, just like if you were buying a house on a normal conventional or FHA loan, pretty standard closing process. And basically what you're saying is that you don't have to be a flipper. You don't have to be someone who has a ton of cash to find a house that simply fits your family's needs. Because there's a lot of dated homes, especially in Phoenix and in these areas that have older homes that they have so much character, and you can't find homes like that today. And a lot of people, including myself, are very interested in those homes. But if I wasn't interested in flipping it, then I wouldn't buy it, right? So what do you think one of the biggest misconceptions that realtors have or consumers have about this loan?
So some of the misconceptions are, one, like you said, the buyers think it's two mortgages. It's just one. Sometimes the sellers think the work is going to be done while they still live there and they don't want contractors coming in. So that's not the case. All the work is done afterwards. The buyers are worried about having to come in with a lot of cash, which isn't true. They don't need to do that. So that's another myth out there. And then a lot of times agents don't understand the programs, or they think if you market a property as a renovation loan, that people are going to think there's something wrong with the home, like it's a bad home. It could be a great home, like you said, built, older home, great structure, great bones. It's just outdated. But I've had agents tell me, we don't want to market this property as a renovation loan because people are going to think there's something wrong with it. And then they're not going to come look at it. And that's not the case at all. It just needs some updating, a little love, and make it to the buyer's touch. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with it. Sometimes sellers, again, are hesitant about the program, and it's just because lack of education and a lot of people not knowing and understanding this program. And another thing is sometimes if a buyer finds a home and it says cash only, I've closed transactions where it says cash only because you do not need to pass an appraisal to close a renovation loan. And I hear that a lot from agents going, this home will never pass FHA or it won't meet VA guidelines. That's fine. It doesn't need to. That's one of the best things about the renovation loan. Don't worry about passing an appraisal in order to close on the loan.
So I'll tell you, one of the biggest misconceptions I have as an agent is I only thought there was one type of renovation loan, the 203K. And that's, and I thought that was like an FHA, and I just wasn't educated on really what you can do with this. So when I heard about this, it was such an eye opener to me for these buyers who maybe have a budget that maybe doesn't include a pool, and that, or the air conditioner is 20 years old and they just don't want to buy that house, even though they love everything and they can't negotiate with the seller, but they know they're going to have to put a $10,000 air conditioning unit in, and they can't, where this is something that could probably solve that problem.
We have 29 different renovation products. So there's something out there for everybody.
Wow.
Whether you're, a veteran, you're a first-time buyer, FHA, like I said, investment property, and they could do anything to that home. Sometimes luxury items are included, like tennis courts, things like that. But remodeling the home, updating it, flooring, tile, carpet, adding a pool, a barbecue area, landscaping, they pretty much could do almost anything to that home. They can add walls if needed. They can move walls. They could add rooms, remove rooms. But like she said, everybody thinks of the old 203K, which we do have. And FHA is a great program, but there's so many more programs out there that can assist people.
Now, what about somebody who owns their home? Can they refinance into a renovation loan or do anything there? Or would their best avenue be doing like a HELOC or something at that point?
Absolutely. We could do a renovation refinance. And sometimes people want to do that before they list their home because they know it's outdated and they might get a little bit more money if they update it. So they could do a renovation refinance and update the home. Or if they just want to stay in that home and, add on to it, add a pool because they didn't have a pool before. Or right now we're seeing a lot of people taking care of their parents and maybe they need to add a unit in the back of the home or make some changes in the home for people that have disabilities. So they can do a lot of things with that property.
That's huge. Sellers, and that's what Nichole, brought up earlier is these sellers that have houses that are out of date, even just out of date, like houses that need flipped. Obviously, those are clear candidates, but even that property, there's a ton of houses that have just reached that 15-20 year mark, and it's time to, redo some flooring and cabinets and things like that.
I feel like there's a loan program out there for everybody. And one of my favorite stories is a veteran I did a loan for, and he was paralyzed in a wheelchair, and he never thought he'd be a homeowner. He's 57 years old, never owned a home, and obviously he needed the home to be compatible for his needs and his disability. And when I met him, I told him about the renovation loan. And we got him into a home. He was actually crying the day of closing. And being a first-time home buyer, 57 years old, never thinking there was a loan program out there for him to meet his needs. And we were able to do it with the renovation loan. So it's just a great program. There's something out there for everybody. It's just taking the time to work with the lender and have them do some footwork, learn the situation of the buyer, learn the details of the buyer. And it's like putting a puzzle together and putting all the pieces together and finding the perfect loan program for a client.
Pam, this has been incredibly informative. We appreciate your time and thank you for joining us today. If someone has questions or wants to learn more about renovation financing or any of these unique loan programs, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They feel free to call me. My number is 602-568-4990. I'm with PrimeLending. I have a website. And then, of course, my email is pam.wall, WALL, at primelending.com. They can contact you. You can refer them over to me, and we can work together as a team because there's a home out there for everybody, and getting home ownership is the best thing for us to do for them.
Thank you. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes below. I think one of the biggest takeaways from today is that there really is a loan program for everybody, and people and buyers have more options than they realize. Too often people fall in love with the home and notice outdated features, finishes, and needed repairs, and they assume they simply won't be able to purchase the property. So the reality is there may be financing solutions that allow them to purchase a home and transform that into exactly what they want. So, and for our realtor audience, this is also a reminder that understanding these programs can open doors and might otherwise close. So sometimes the difference between a deal falling apart and successful closing is simply knowing what tools you have and what financing exists. So thank you for everyone to listening to Beyond the Sign. If you found today's episode valuable, please be sure to share it with somebody and subscribe. Real conversations, real people, and real value. We'll see you next time on Beyond the Sign.